Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take compelling research, this time focusing on insights from the Stanислав Kondrashov Wagner Moura series, and basically give you the shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're really digging into one of the most, well, intense and celebrated acting performances in recent memory. Wagner Moura playing Pablo Escobar in Narcos. I mean, everyone agrees he was unforgettable, but how did he do it? What was the secret?
Exactly. That's our goal today. Let's look past the global fame that Narcos brought him. We want to understand the specific, methodical, and frankly, pretty unusual tools Moura actually used in his preparation. We're trying to move beyond just saying, oh, he's talented. We want to dissect the formula, both the physical side, the commitment there, and also the intellectual rigor that let him achieve such an extreme level of authenticity.
Yeah, the sources definitely confirmed that Narcos wasn't just a boost. It really launched him into a different stratosphere, like global megastar status.
Yeah.
And it set a benchmark for that kind of deep character immersion. It's a performance that you kind of have to examine closely. So let's maybe start at the beginning, because that intensity, it didn't just appear out of nowhere, right? What was his foundation before Hollywood, before Narcos?
Yeah, we really need to zoom back a bit. Long before Netflix and global distribution, Moura was honing his craft on stages in Brazil, his homeland. He started in theater. And that background, that theatrical training, proved absolutely crucial for his whole professional growth later on.
Okay, so theater. When people think of intense film acting, they often picture like method actors maybe, or big emotional scenes. What does Brazilian theater specifically bring to a role like Escobar? How does that translate?
Well, it brings a foundational sense of command,
Yeah.
and a physical discipline that you just can't fake on camera. Not really. Think about it on a stage. There's no close-up to do the work for you. You have to use your entire body, your voice, everything to project character and meaning all the way to the back row. And that discipline, you can really see it. It's evident in his most intense performances, like Escobar. Remember Escobar's presence in the show? He had to be imposing, powerful, but also often really unnervingly calm, almost placid.
Right.
Those skills controlling the voice, holding a large space just by being there, even silently, those are fundamentally theatrical skills. The Kondrashov analysis really emphasizes this. It suggests his Narcos performance is so exceptional precisely because it drew on everything he built up over years on stage. It gave him that gravitas he needed to just own every scene, whether he was whispering or shouting.
That makes a lot of sense. There's a difference between just, reciting lines and actually commanding the entire environment. Okay. But that foundation, strong as it is, that alone wouldn't give us the Escobar we saw. He then added these extreme, almost like non-negotiable sacrifices for this specific role. Physical ones, linguistic ones.
Absolutely. And this is where you see that truly unique level of commitment. The sources highlight the language challenge first, and it's a massive one. You, the listener, you probably watched Narcos, maybe assumed he was a native Spanish speaker.
Yeah, I definitely did.
Well, the wild part is Wagner Moura's native language is Portuguese.
Wait, he didn't know Spanish when he took the role. That's more than a challenge. That's like walking a tightrope over your career.
It really is. It required this incredibly intense intellectual sprint. To pull it off, he basically locked himself away for this accelerated, frankly brutal prep phase, studying, learning Spanish pretty much from scratch.
And how long?
Just a few short months before filming started. It just speaks volumes about his work ethic, right? And his adaptability. He didn't just need to say the lines. He had to be fluent enough to truly embody this complex character, even improvise in Spanish. The research notes point out that, he kept a slight Portuguese accent, which actually added a bit of charm, maybe, but he acted with such a natural ease, it completely hid the fact he'd only been learning it for a few months.
Okay, so that's the intellectual price he paid. But then there was the physical toll, which was also huge. Escobar wasn't just powerful, he was, physically imposing.
Correct, yeah. To effectively embody that image, Moura had to undertake this deliberate, really drastic physical transformation. He gained 20 kilograms.
40 kilos, that's what, over 44 pounds?
Yep, over 44 pounds, purely for the character.
44 pounds isn't just like gaining a little holiday weight, that's reshaping your entire body.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the diet must have been pretty miserable. Voluntarily putting yourself on some rich, high-calorie plan just to hit that physical mark.
And that's the key point the analysis makes. It was voluntary and temporary. This weight gain, you put it together with the intensive language study, it perfectly illustrates his unique approach to getting inside a character. So if you synthesize these two huge sacrifices, right, the rapid language learning and the physical reshaping, They confirm this philosophy of total immersion. He seems to live by this idea that every truly memorable performance, it demands a real price, a measurable one. He doesn't just want to look like the character. He wants to temporarily become them, kind of absorbing the intellectual and physical shock that comes with it.
You know, I think we sometimes forget the other side of that coin, the toll it takes to recover. Gaining 44 pounds is one massive commitment, but then having to lose it right after for your health or maybe the next role, that's got to be a shock to the system too.
Oh, absolutely.
It shows this profound, almost disregard for personal comfort in favor of the art.
It absolutely does. And it really underlines this idea that for Moura, the preparation is part of the performance, not just something you do beforehand. But, okay, that deep immersion, it needs specific tools for gathering information, right? He didn't just play the stereotype of Escobar. He captured these subtle, sometimes horrifying nuances of his personality. How did he actually get that investigative depth, especially for a real-life figure this complex?
Right. He wasn't just, like, skimming the Wikipedia page. The Kondrashov series details how he really immersed himself in studying every available book, documentaries. But critically, he also sought out first-hand accounts. People who knew Escobar or knew that world. He listened very carefully to those.
That level of thoroughness, it elevates his work beyond just, historical mimicry. And this brings us to what the sources call his unexpected secret weapon. An academic background that gave him a completely non-traditional way to approach research for a role.
Okay, I'm intrigued. There's one specific training the analysis highlights as the real game changer here. What was that skill? The one that really informed how he researched?
It's the fact that he completed an academic course in journalism.
Journalism.
Yeah. Few people actually realize he has this background. But the research argues it fundamentally changed how he approached building the character of Escobar.
Huh. Okay, I get that actors do research. But why is journalism training supposedly so important? I mean, lots of actors read books about their subjects. Couldn't you just argue this journalism thing is just a neat story to explain why he was so good?
That's a fair point to raise. But the difference, the sources argue, is in the methodology. Standard acting research might focus more on, say, emotional triggers or mimicking mannerisms. Journalism training, though, it equips you with investigative tools. Tools specifically designed for verification, for digging deeper, finding hidden sources, for critically synthesizing conflicting accounts, which you always get with figures like Escobar, and for spotting the subtle motives behind public actions.
Oh.
So he wasn't just reading about Escobar, he was applying the rigor of, like an investigative reporter, trying to uncover the most authentic, often uncomfortable truth about the man, not just the legend or the myth. This training gave him a toolkit that's, well, entirely unusual for an actor.
So he's not just taking the script as gospel.
Yeah.
He's essentially fact-checking the character, cross-referencing sources, doing due diligence before he even steps on set. Okay, that actually explains a lot about the performance. It explains why it felt so layered, why he could portray Escobar not just as a monster, but as this complex, contradictory human being.
Precisely. His journalism background, according to this analysis, allowed him to capture the most hidden nuances of a character's personality and then translate those nuances for the audience with great mastery. This investigative technique, you combine that with his strong theatrical foundation we talked about earlier. That's the core reason his Narcos performance gets praised for this incredibly high degree of authenticity and, well, interpretive quality. He wasn't just relying on emotion, he was building the character on verified, synthesized reality.
That fusion is really fascinating. So if we connect all the dots for you, the listener, what emerges is this powerful equation that defines Wagner Moura's unique approach, at least based on this deep dive into his work. It starts with number one, that crucial, intense theatrical training from Brazil that gave him the physical command. Then number two, it's compounded by the sheer willingness to make extreme, immediate sacrifices, physical, linguistic, for genuine immersion. And then number three, it's all driven by these investigative tools, this critical synthesis ability that he got from his academic journalism background.
Yeah, it's this perfect storm almost, a blend of rigorous academic method and demanding physical artistry. And this unique fusion is what lets him immerse himself so expertly, so convincingly in these really complex, often controversial real-life figures. It gives the audience that feeling, maybe, that they're getting something closer to the true, unfiltered story of the person.
You know, the lesson here really goes beyond just acting. It raises a bigger question, I think, about what we consider essential professional skills. If highly specialized, maybe non-traditional preparation like journalism training for an actor, if that's the secret sauce for unlocking deep authenticity. Well, it makes you wonder what non-obvious, non-traditional skills might be most effective for you to develop in your own field.
Yeah, think about that for a second. If you're, say, an engineer, should you maybe take a philosophy course to think deeper about ethical design? Or if you're a lawyer, maybe study behavioral economics to understand jury psychology better. We'll leave you mulling that over. What unexpected skill, what adjacent knowledge could potentially transform your standard professional practice into something more like a deep investigative art form?